Is chastity for everybody? I'm Marco Casanova, and this is Desert Streaming. I recently came across some videos of Manny Gonzalez. I think his video is worth discussing. Let's tune in.
Now, can we please stop saying everyone's called to chastity when talking about homosexuality in the church? Like, yes, it's true. We are all called to chastity in our respective states of life. But also, it is undeniable fact that the way I'm called to be chaste as a man in the church who is attracted to other men, aka celibacy for the kingdom, looks way different than that of a man in the church who's married to a woman, has a bunch of kids, and most likely engages in the sexual act with his wife on a regular basis.
Okay, I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I think I've narrowed it down to 3. Number 1, what is chastity? Number 2, what is homosexuality? And number 3, what is celibacy for the kingdom of God? First and foremost, chastity is for everybody across the board, especially those of us who have some messy starting points like same-sex attraction. The Catechism speaks of how chastity is about reconciling us to the reality of being made in the image of God, being made in the imago Dei. John Paul II would go on to explain this in the Theology of the Body, and he says that we're made in the image of God not so much in the moment of solitude, but in the moment of communion. I'm in the image of God not so much on an island by myself, but in relationship to woman, as I enter into the dance, so to speak, of honoring her, of dignifying her. That's what it means to be made in the image of God. So what's chastity? Chastity is about integrating the reality of that. All of us have messy starting points to chastity. So of course, chastity is an equal opportunity offender. So for those of us who experience same-sex attraction, maybe those of you who have no problem being attracted to the opposite sex, but you have addictions to objectify the other, or whatever your case might be, chastity is a call for all of us to enter into what it means to be made in the image of God and to dignify the other. So yes, chastity is for everybody. I get what Manny's saying. We have to make some necessary nuances for people who have particular starting points. Maybe you're allergic to your own sex. Maybe you're eroticized to the same sex. Maybe you have history of abuse, or maybe you've just been let down by a failed marriage, or maybe you're single and you don't want to be single. You want to get married, but you're frustrated in the gift giving. Whatever the case might be, there are on-roads for all of us to be chaste, but the call is for everybody, for sure. Secondly, what is homosexuality? I think the Catechism is very clear in saying that homosexuality isn't a benign or neutral thing. It's a disordered desire. It's objectively disordered. When I read that in the Catechism, I read that there's healing. Jesus wants to reconcile us to the purity of our origins. Redeemer Jesus wants to meet us in fractures like same-sex attraction and wants to transform us. There are reasons why we experience same-sex attraction, and those reasons need to be mined and understood from a psychological perspective. Deeper still is this work that Jesus wants to do. Homosexuality, I believe, is emblematic of a psychological wound. And you know what that means? There's healing for us. So it's not this immovable, defining thing. Homosexuality is a vulnerability. So when we speak of chastity, of course we have to speak about things like homosexuality. I think there's a healing quality to chastity. As we step into who we are, Jesus helps us in these areas where we may get stuck. Jesus has so much more for us, and chastity is the answer. And thirdly, celibacy for the kingdom of God. John Paul II goes into a beautiful exposition of this in the Theology of the Body, and he says that celibacy for the kingdom of God necessitates a renunciation of the good of marriage. In other words, you have to renounce the good of marriage from a profoundly personal place. You gotta want marriage. So in order to be a true celibate for the kingdom, you have to say, I'm gonna forego this marital relationship, children, all of that. I'm gonna forego it so as to be fully identified with Jesus and his kingdom mission in the world. That's what a celibate for the kingdom of God is. Celibacy is not a dodge of the other. And I fear this is what comes across when people who struggle with same-sex attraction then identify as queer or LGBTQ, and then they stall in becoming. They stall in becoming a good gift to the opposite sex. It's not to say that marriage is the end of all of our stories, but gift giving is. What does it mean to honor her in your masculinity? masculine sexuality? What does it mean to honor him in your feminine sexuality? John Paul II, sorry to quote the Pope, he's a good thinker. He goes on to say that inherent in every man is a capacity to be son, to be groom, and to be father. Inherent in every woman is a capacity to be daughter, to be bride, and to be mother. No matter what disordered desire one may experience, these capacities are inherent in who we are, inherent in us. And what Jesus wants to do is he wants to help us make peace with those realities. The powers of life and love pulse through our very beings. And Jesus is saying, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to be an instrument of love in the context of marriage? Are you going to renounce the good of marriage for the sake of my priesthood, or becoming a sister, or becoming just a celibate to fully identify with me? But all that to say, I don't think same-sex attraction is an obstacle to any of that. I think Jesus wants to help us find the narrow way through it so as to become who we are. And I realize what Manny is saying here is that we have to do the proper work of nuancing it. But I fear that he's also saying some things that I think are problematic. We need to do a better job of helping folks who have messy starting points with the high call of chastity. But we can do it.
Like, they're not exactly the same. And telling me otherwise is giving me a half-truth. Even if said with good intention, which is the case most of the time, it kind of minimizes the reality of chastity for those of us in the church who simply, for one reason or another, aren't getting married. Because my call to chastity does look different to a degree. If it didn't, then I'd otherwise be considered a married man. Please be transparent about the call. Those of us with LGBT plus experiences in the church deserve to know the true reality of what the church is inviting us into. It's good, it's beautiful, but to a degree, it does take on a unique expression. It's healthy and honestly necessary to acknowledge that.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts here. He equates chastity with marriage, but I don't think that's what the Catechism is doing. I think the goal of chastity is gift giving. It's about becoming a good gift in who you are as a man to woman, but also as a man to other men. I know for me, experiencing same-sex attraction and needing to grow through that, I had to make peace with who I was as a man among men and who I was as a man for woman. There was a part in my life which I totally disqualified myself from the whole idea of marriage based on my experience of same-sex attraction. But then I realized, wait a minute, I was hiding in the priesthood. I wasn't ordained yet, but I was in the seminary and I was immature. The domination of homosexuality in my life was a sign that I had still some growing up to do in making peace with who I was and actually learning how to give myself. In a way, I was hiding in the celibacy call because I was too afraid of woman. Woman in the general sense. I left the seminary because I was like, I got to do more work in my life. I want to be a saint. I want to be on fire for Jesus. And this same-sex attraction thing is actually challenging me to grow and to mature. And so I left the seminary. I thought, I'm going to start dating women because I was starting to experience some attractions. And I thought, man, I'm not in the seminary anymore. I'm going to start dating. And then I realized, wow, dating is hard. I thought I can hold a conversation. I'm a little strange, but I'm not that weird. I can totally do this. But then I realized, whoa, the world of dating is an interesting world. And being a good gift means that I need to learn how to be a man of fortitude and suffer rejection well. Some of the rejection was based because I did experience same-sex attraction, and some women were like, I can't deal with that. I am a broken gift. I'm a gift, but I'm broken. I need to learn how to give my gift and to honor woman despite the difficulties that all of us experience to some degree. And I realize same-sex attraction is a particular struggle because it is so interconnected with our self-understanding, but all of us experience the fits and starts of being a good gift to the opposite sex, being a good gift to the persons of the same sex. And so when I met my wife, it was such a gift to know that I could actually be a man for her. Jesus does this in all of our lives to make us a good gift. Not to say that marriage is the end of every single story. I feel like I'm a broken record in saying that. But why not? Why could it not be a part of your story if God so wills it? Don't say that it's not based on a disordered desire, but believe God for the more. You're a gift, and chastity is for everyone. And chastity is all about becoming that gift.